You guys aren't afraid to look something in the eye and deal with it, but also you have a plan. And I think that's what we're really seeing right now, which is sad. It's just a lot of people without a plan. If it was just the two of you without a plan trying to deal with all this, not to say that you wouldn't have been able to manage it, but it's a lot. And a lot of people have no plan and no team like we have and you've built, so that something like this that comes up, we can deal with it, we can manage it. I think a lot of people were just caught on their heels and wanted to bury their head in the sand and say, well, nothing's really going to change, and that's just not, you can't operate like that. Good morning, everyone. I'm here today with our leadership team to discuss the future of the company, the current state of the company, and the future of the industry and the current state of the industry. It's been something that, it sounds like a very broad topic, but something that we've been batting around just behind closed doors and felt like it was a conversation that would be definitely worth having with everyone. So thank you for being here today. So just to kick us off, if we could, do you guys want to each just give a little introduction of yourselves? Because not that I think we need that, but it doesn't hurt.
Sure. My name is Colleen Barry, and I'm the CEO of Gibson Sotheby's International Realty. I've been with the firm for 22 years.
And I'm Larry Rideout. I'm the co-founder of the company, Gibson Sotheby's International Realty, and I've been in the business. This will be 40 years for me.
I'm Paul McGann, one of the co-founders, and we've been here since the inception of Gibson Sotheby's, which was 2006.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's jump right in. Maybe we'll start with you, Colleen. Can you provide the simple explanation of the changes to our business practices and what are the implications on the real estate industry, professionals, real estate agents?
Absolutely. There were two distinct changes that really came out of the settlement that occurred with the National Association of Realtors. But also there are multiple settlements that have happened. So I'm going to keep it simple with that one for now. And the two major changes to consumers are that, one, if a buyer agent is going to show somebody a property, they have to have a signed contract in advance of showing them any property. And that contract needs to stipulate terms and, how the relationship is going to operate and also what they charge. Now, that's different in Massachusetts in terms of, other states had been doing that as a practice for a long time. So in Massachusetts, that is a change. Whereas, when I talk to my colleagues around the country, they're like, well, that part we were already doing. But the second part is that according to the settlement, real estate companies are not supposed to show their commissions, their buyer agent commissions on the MLSs. So that change is major around the country. It's hit every market. But there is one caveat in our market, and that is that out of the 5 MLSs that we deal with as a company, 2 of our MLSs have opted not to abide by the terms of the contract of the settlement. So we're all in a position right now where we're trying to navigate our way through what are a little bit choppier waters in the state of Massachusetts.
It's a change, physically, but the concept of the business hasn't changed. Everyone still needs to be compensated for their efforts. So it's a matter of how we get that across. And if I can just say that you two and your leadership team have educated our agents beyond any doubt about how to do that. And it's been wonderful. I've joined several of the sessions and they're so well attended and people are asking so many questions, and you left it an open conversation so people could share what they were thinking and how they were dealing with it. So in terms of our company, I think you guys did an amazing job for us. All of you. There's a whole group of you, but I'm talking to you two at this moment.
There's a huge group. And I'll tell you, that came from the way that you guys have led the company over the last, since 2006. Mm-hmm. And that every time we've hit an obstacle, the way that you approached it was not to run and hide or not to try to desperately hold on to the way things were, but to take a look at what really suits our agents and their clients best. And then lean into that and to empower people with the right information. And in empowering them, they feel really comfortable and confident when they go into those circumstances and those conversations with their clients. So really, we did no differently than you had in the past. It was just, I think this one is sort of a big microscope right now because of class action settlements and everything else. But it's really just about giving the information that the agents need in order to be able to operate their business as well.
But it really shows what we built, that when an issue comes up like this, we have everybody in place. We have in-house counsel and keeps us on track, and a lot of experience in the field that has gotten us through this. And our agents, some of them are almost, we're teaching them too much. They're pushed, but we'd rather err on that side. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, what's really nice about this approach is that, there was a combination of classroom style learning, I would call it. And then Nicole and Daphne together led this other kind of style of learning where it was much more conversational. It was about how can I use this knowledge now in the conversations I'm having with clients. And, with our in-house counsel and Jeff really leading the way on the other side. But in terms of doing it that way, what's so interesting is our agents have such a command over the information that now they're full-time real estate industry experts out there, but they're also now trainers. Because what's happened is colleagues who are in other companies who maybe didn't get the benefit of that kind of training are going to them and saying, how do we do this?
Yeah, we are seeing that, which is very unusual in this industry, that they've come to their competitor to help.
Well, we
educate
needed
them.
everyone. I was shocked. I still am shocked how many of specifically the bigger companies did like the wait and see scramble. Like, let's just see what happens, see where it all shakes out.
Some haven't even changed.
Nothing.
I mean, eventually everybody's going to have to get there. So everyone's going to have to face that at some time. We just chose to face it head on and with a steady hand, which is one of the things we always talk about in our company. We don't get this excited and we don't get this excited. We're right here on a steady hand.
And we don't hide,
That's right.
deal with it. Yeah.
But it was the same approach during COVID. If we rewind back to that moment where everything gets confusing and the world is shutting down, the first thing that we did was every day we're going to get on Zoom together. All of us as a company. And what we got out of that was, first of all, we shared knowledge and expertise and any information that we had. But the second piece was to be able to get comfortable saying, geez, I don't know. The answer right now is I just don't know what's going to happen, but I'm here to help. And I think that approach meant that agents were able to help their clients through one of the most challenging and stressful moments in their lives, as opposed to turtling, which is the alternative. I'm just going to hide and wait.
And that's what happened in the recession.
That's right.
We have no other options. So let's get through it, roll up our sleeves, and
we over communicate. And the emotion is there. We always talk about being a family, and that's when a family matters, when there's an issue that has to be taken care of. You have to be open and talk about it. And some of your sessions were 3 hours long, which I was blown away. People wanted to stay on and talk about this. So you see that it's a relevant conversation. And frankly, I think we took the lead in all of our other companies that are out there in terms of getting information out. Especially where I'm most proud of you all is that you are protecting the client, which is our seller. If they determine to use that MLS, there's small print there that says, oh, by the way, you can be involved in litigation. We've chosen not to involve them in that litigation. We're going to operate in that fashion. Anyone else is taking everyone and putting a little exposure on them that probably isn't necessary.
And part of that, I think, is digging deep and understanding what's happening first. It's asking a lot of questions and talking to people around the industry and doing a deep dive. But the second part really is, I think, being able to embrace change. And that's hard to do. People don't even like the change they asked for, never mind the change they didn't ask for. So I think that ultimately becomes the challenge is it's really change management and caring enough to listen to the people around you and then take the questions they have and help guide them into the
Well, that was part of the reason that we wanted to have this conversation too, because I think pivoting, as much as that was overused, we've seen that time and time again, that you guys aren't afraid to look something in the eye and deal with it, but also you have a plan. And I think that's what we're really seeing right now, which is sad. It's just a lot of people without a plan. If it was just the two of you without a plan trying to deal with all this, not to say that you wouldn't have been able to manage it, but it's a lot. And a lot of people have no plan and no team like we have and you've built, so that something like this that comes up, we can deal with it, we can manage it. I think a lot of people were just caught on their heels and wanted to bury their head in the sand and say, well, nothing's really going to change. And that's just not, you can't operate like that. It's not the right way to support your agents. So just pivoting, obviously, and getting a little bit more into those training opportunities. We kind of went through that question, my next question, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit on, we did mandatory trainings. We did those required trainings. We had incredible people who aren't at this table right now who know more about this than probably anybody does. And that I looked at that and said, okay, this is one way that people learn. But then also me, I joke around about like my ADD brain. I just need an open conversation. Yeah. So every single Monday at 2 p.m., we open up, we'll do it today, where this is a Monday that we're talking to the whole company to get on and just talk about what we're dealing with, what the questions are, role play, whatever we need to do. It's been shocking, to Larry's point. It's like 2 and 3 hours long. Yeah. 100 plus agents every single week. And I think that's helping. It's like you need both of those opportunities. You need to hear the nuts and bolts, and then you need to see how it plays out. So it's been interesting now that everything's underway. We're still getting people on to share what they have going on and success stories, really, that's been the best part at this point, just to ease everyone's minds.
Well, and I think there's a piece of that that's hugely important. You know, when you start to go through change and you're trying to understand it intellectually, that's one piece, right? It's like, okay, so here are the things that are going to change. But the next step is, how do I guide somebody through that? Because it's not just the agent that has to understand it. They have to be able to have mastery over the topic so that then they can guide their client through that. And that's a whole other level of understanding. It's essentially understanding the topic so well that you can teach it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what the benefit of those sessions that you're talking about has really been that agents can freeform ask questions. They can role play too and find language that they're comfortable with. If you don't have language that you're comfortable with, you will hide from the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so what we're seeing in there is people talking about the language they're using, and you might hear 4 or 5 different ways that different people are talking about it. And you go, oh, that one, that feels really good to me. And they're exchanging concerns, questions, and sometimes you might go over the same topic multiple times, but just talking about it in slightly different ways. But the reality is, I think without that kind of real world, how am I going to communicate this to somebody else? Even if you intellectually know it, if you can't communicate it, you're stuck. You're in a bind.
Yeah, we always talk in our company about our culture and our collaboration. And you couldn't have seen that any better than on those meetings. We had 500 agents participating openly, top producers talking about how they were doing it so that everyone could have it and share it. And I think that's the secret sauce for this company is the collaboration of our associates. I'm, so proud of them to put the time in to do this.
Yeah. Without setting it up formally, it's a mentorship. Yeah. Where they're seeing what happened to them on the weekend and showings and getting the agreement signed, and they can share it with the newer agents or some people who just don't grasp it yet.
What's so exciting about that too is that the success stories coming in show that it's working.
Yeah.
And I think that's hugely important because you can do everything you feel like is the right move on the upfront. But if you're not hearing success stories back, then you have to wonder, is it really working? Mm-hmm. But what we're hearing is that clients get it. They're not wrestling with, well, this is a little bit different. They're like, oh, that makes sense. Let's move forward. We'll take a look at all the offers and see which one wins. So, yeah.
So we've talked so much about what's changing. Let's talk a little bit about what's not changing, like what's going to stay the same. And I think that's important for people to hear. Yeah. Well, that's changing in a different direction.
Well, ultimately, the business isn't really changing. It's the conversation around compensation. That's really the only thing that changes. Mm-hmm. So in the end, clients come to us, either buyers or sellers, because they're looking for guidance and expertise in making one of the biggest decisions of their lives. And it's complicated. You're typically moving because of something else that's changing in your life. Could be a job, might be a family situation, whatever. But it is a big financial decision. It's a big legal decision. There are all those elements. So they're still coming to us for the kind of guidance that we've always provided them. The only real difference is the conversation around compensation, in that each party is having that separately before they start working on looking at properties or inviting people into their homes. So that's really the only major change. Everything else remains the same.
Yeah, it's what we say. What's not changing? Sellers still have to sell. Buyers have to buy. And there are people that can help them do that who are the associates. And everybody needs everybody. And so we'll just figure out how to make that all work.
Yeah, I love that. And so we've kind of we got into all of the changes in the industry, how we're going to deal with that, how we have dealt with that, and continue to, because that's going to be an ongoing thing. This isn't anywhere close to done. Nope. I keep saying I think the spring market will be when we start to feel like it's the normal, because I think where the fall market is going to be with the election and things like that, there's other factors, and it's going to take a minute for it just to become normal business practice. So 6 to 9 months is my guess before this isn't a hot topic.
And it might be a moving target. The reality is that what's been put in our direction in terms of guidelines thus far could change.
Right.
The DOJ could get involved. There could be more class action lawsuits depending on how companies operate now, because the current settlements only really protect them going backward, doesn't protect them going forward. So if they don't change their practices, there's a possibility we might see more of that kind of behavior happening. So ultimately, we are operating in a world where it's a little bit of a moving target, but the most important thing is it changes how we operate, but it doesn't really change what the client gets from us. So that's the most important piece of that. And I think you're right. I think until spring, it's going to be, changing potentially on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis.
But your Monday conversations will bring real-time information to everybody. And that's really, right now, it's critical. People are really going to be signing agreements, really getting questions, sharing it with our team. It's going to be powerful.
They just have so many resources within our company that they're never alone. Right.
So getting into more of state of the company, future of the company, we've talked through our partnership and just the four of us really digging into that a little bit. What tactical advantages do you feel like we have over other companies with this as the group that's sort of at the helm? Does that something we can get into?
I figured out that we need to get some people that were wicked smart. and what we did was surround ourselves with you two to begin with. And then you think about our leadership team. And you think about all the way down the line to the OMCs. I mean, everybody's invested in this company. It's a family entity. It really is. To be 500 agents and still say you're a family is a lot of work.
It is.
And you carry it off every day, every one of you. I could run the whole names, but I won't do that. But everybody knows that we feel the same about all of them. And the joke about Wicked Smart is that you're young. We have a young team. Think about it. If you look around, everybody's young, everybody's energetic, everybody's invested in our company. It's the perfect storm as far as I can see. Coming from 2006 when we were, we got bombed with the markets turning on us to now, it's two different worlds.
We often know where we want to get, but not how to get there. And you guys at the leadership team figure it out, and it's we're always amazed. We're like, that's what we were thinking.
But
at least we claim that's what we
Once we arrive.
We take the credit.
But I think what we do differently here and what has come from you guys is really the difference between leadership and management. So in most places you have managers where it's really about, listen, this is my job, that's your job, I'm going to give you a task to do. When you're done, you come back and talk to me. And instead, the style here is leadership. In other words, I'm going to empower the people around me to do their jobs really well and try to remove as many obstacles as I can. And we're going to sort our way through these things. So what you've taught us to do is essentially try not to be the smartest person in the room. Try to surround. We try to surround ourselves. We try to surround ourselves with really smart, caring people, and it makes it so much better. And what's fun is, despite all of these challenges that we've gone through, and despite that, anytime you go into a circumstance where you're being told from the outside you need to change something, that's tough to do. But when you're surrounded by other really smart people who care, the kinds of questions that came up on a regular basis, and I think of, your Monday sessions as a great example, was how do we make this easier on our agents? And that was every single time there was a question or an argument or a debate about something, it was, we're trying to get to how can we make this easier on them? And I think the fact that we all had the same mission was hugely important.
The mission, but then the way we get there, that's what I think is most interesting, is like our there's room for just everyone. Like when I look at it from just the stylistically, so many companies, and there's good to both, claim one or the other. It's either legacy, you've been here for a long time, you have a steady hand in the leadership sense, like you guys would. And then there's some people that want to come in and disrupt and say, well, we know everything better. And they might know a lot of things better, but they also don't have that vision that somebody would have that's been in it for a long time. We've married the two very nicely because we come at everything with fresh eyes. We look at everything that's innovative. Anything that's new, we're going to look at. But at the same time, we have that legacy, that sophisticated brand that's been here for a long time. Everybody knows what it is. So you have that kind of combo. But ultimately, what it comes down to is we're all so different. Like Colleen and I joke that we could not be more different. But when we're bringing on a new company in terms of acquisitions or a new recruit or whatever it might be, people kind of cling on to a different person every time. But there's room for that because our company isn't just one thing where someone might come sit at a recruit meeting and be like, you seem nice, but like, this isn't my style. There's so many people. So like someone might just really take to Colleen's style and that becomes their kind of go-to person, or Larry's style or Paul's style, mine, whoever it is. And it's never what you expect. But we have, and to Larry's point, this huge roster of people that we let people be themselves and lead in their own way, which actually creates an environment that we can maintain the family thing, because there's little groups of people that all connect with each other and everybody ultimately connects. But I think it's just that there's not one thing here. It's not one size fits all. It's a big eclectic group of people. It's somehow all meshed together very nicely.
Well, we're made up of people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a monolithic entity. It's not like some kind of big corporate blob. It's really a bunch of individual people who each have their own backgrounds and past experiences and skill sets or talents. And it's like, how can we each lean into those? And you're right, we debate regularly over different things. We have totally different takes on something. But ultimately, at the heart of that, among our leadership team too, not just between us, is love and respect. So when you care about someone and you trust them and you respect them, you can absolutely have a difference of opinion. Right? We've been that for years. We've definitely had that. But ultimately, I think we're stronger as a result of that.
Well, it goes back to when, like that simple phrase, our agents are our clients. That's right. And we treat them that way. And if they're successful, we're successful. And because people ask us all the time, like, what's the secret sauce? And it's the people and how we treat them.
And, you know, the best example, you mentioned merger acquisitions. We're always looking for growth, you know, but it's got to be strategic. It's got to fit our company. It's got to serve our clients, which are our agents. They have to be able to grow along with us. We don't just go out and willy-nilly buy companies. But when we bring them in, and I generally am the one out there scratching the dirt to find them, and they'll find one and I like it. They have to come before my leadership team, which are all of you, and they think they're interviewing, or we're interviewing them, and they don't know that we're interviewing them. In other words, when they finish the meeting, I have to go back and sit with my leadership team, and it's happened more times than not, where they say, we can't make it work, or we can't fit, and I'm loving the company, but I understand that that's why we talk to each other, and I have to make that hard call and say, you know, we're not going to probably move forward with this because my team doesn't have that feeling that you fit everything that we need to fit. So that's why we've had such great merger acquisitions. You know, that's why everything's worked out for us. And we're going to continue to do that. It's a great process, and it works for us.
And we've done that as far in recruiting too, where an agent comes in, we don't think it's going to be a cultural fit, and we just pass on it. And so much so we've passed and built other people's companies.
That's true.
that they've taken them.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no doubt about it. Well, I think ultimately, though, the question you've really tasked us with, or the idea is, can we each help each other grow? And if that can't happen, then there's really not a path to success together. But the bigger question is it a similar or the same culture? Because if that's the answer to that is no.
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
There's a non-starter right there.
And speaking, that kind of pivots us to sort of one of our wrap-up points here is I want to definitely bring it back to, let's put this in perspective. And you said M&A, and I've talked a lot on this podcast with George Slusher, and we talk about how everybody's obsessed with, this is going to be a time of consolidation, There's been so many, consolidation is always going to be boom and bust. Anytime there's something new that's happening, it's going to disrupt. That's totally normal. There's going to be people say, I don't want to deal with this. Can you put that in perspective for us, that this is not something, while this is a monumental time in the industry, how many monumental times, and just kind of put that into perspective for consumers, for agents. You've lived through a lot of this.
Well, the media has to sell eyes, right? They have to have these headlines that are always like Armageddon and things are happening and everybody's going to sell now. Everything's going to change. The reality is in our industry, it's a pretty steady industry. There are moments like this moment is a challenge for people. If they've been in a long time and they have a nice company and all of a sudden they've got to make all of these changes, there are moments when you can take advantage of it, but generally, I had a mentor that said about real estate companies, you're always growing. You're either growing smaller or you're growing larger. So there's no status quo in that. You have to be continually trying to grow, and some companies have finished growing, and that's why we're here. Give us a call. We'll talk to you.
We've been really successful with those companies who the owners are the top producers. So we take the running of the company off them, and then they just take off and thrive.
Yeah, this is going to make that style or that model harder, navigating these changes and all that. So I guess that rolls into it. For an agent, what are my next steps right now? If I'm a real estate agent, like just kind of wrapping us up, whether you're our agent, another agent, what am I looking at?
I think it's ultimately being resourceful. And so if you're part of an organization that's giving you the kinds of guidance and leadership that you need in order to be able to understand the changes that are in front of you and to be able to embrace that, that's really ultimately the path
Asking
to
those
success.
questions is, I think, what people need to be doing.
Yeah, that's maybe
it's a
the
good
first
time to start asking questions of, am I in the right place?
That's right.
Things like that, because there's a lot of surprises that we've seen.
Well, this is a stark example for an agent. Where are you right now? You just heard what we were saying. Is your company doing that?
Right.
And I think this isn't the first time we faced something that was a challenge. And, I think back to even in the early days of information about properties and videos and, photographs being shared online. I remember there were companies who said, absolutely not. We're not sharing any more than 4 photos. And their idea was, let's try to make a gate so that consumers have to call us. And we were seeing that you could, look at 15 photos in order to buy 1 pair of shoes. So we didn't do it that way. We instead tried to open it up and welcome consumers in. And I think, companies like that, it's really hard to stay open if you're going to resist that kind of change. And so I think ultimately agents and companies need to really think about, what is our path forward? What are the changes? How do we get out ahead of it, as opposed to like dragging behind it?
It's limiting yourself too when you think back to wanting to be the gatekeepers, like before the internet, right? When they started faxing out the listings or whatever it was. Well, if we share, then what's our value add? Well, value add is so much beyond that. But if you only believe that that's all you're bringing to the table, that's the first problem, and that'll be it. And that's what this is now. I think for a long time, whether it was intentional, and I don't think it ever really was, that a buyer didn't understand how their agent was paid. That doesn't mean that you weren't doing an incredible amount of work that you should feel completely justified in saying there's nowhere you can go and just get a service for free.
That's right.
Right? So it's like, it's just understanding your value and being able to, and I know that's easier said than done, but it's just flexing that muscle a couple times and realizing, like, obviously no one thought this was volunteer work, right? You've provided incredible service for someone. You've spent sometimes years working with people. It's just about sitting down and being able to, so I think that, like, just sitting down with yourself, asking yourself all the right questions of, if you're getting the support you need and all that, it's more now, believing that you're adding value beyond just these little rules that we're looking at.
In our marketing department, our leadership team, our brokerage side, everybody is really invested in helping our agents embrace that and to move forward in a way that actually means, I think, more success for them in the future, genuinely speaking. I think ultimately changes like this are an opportunity for agents to set themselves apart from their competitors.
Right, the good ones are going to grow out of this.
And it'll shake some other side of the business.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
It's almost like having a legacy of leadership behind us. It's now picking up the energy level for us.
Yeah, and I do think that we're unique, and I think that people are looking for stability right now, and that was a big reason that I'm grateful we're all able to sit down, because I think this conversation and just this group alone, let alone with the huge group of leadership and incredible agents we have behind us, we are the steady hand, and I do believe we have a very bright and consistent future. And I think right now that's what people are looking for, is just, I need something I know I can depend on. That's not going to shift or change.
Still going to be here.
Yes,
Getting enough change out there.
Yes, a lot is changing otherwise. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to leave everyone with.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for being
Thanks
here.
for having us.
Awesome.
Thank you.